Alright, today we're going to write linear equations. In order to do that, you always need two things. You need a point and a slope. If you have a graph, think about if I were looking at this graph and I was asked to write the equation in slope-intercept form, could you possibly find what you need and plug them in? See if you can do that on your paper. Find M stands for slope, find B, the y-intercept, and just plug it in. Can you tell me what the equation would be? Y equal. What's the slope?
1/2.
1/2 x. Okay. And all you do is just rise up or run, whichever way. And then the y-intercept is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So plus 5. Alright, so from a graph we can write an equation. That's pretty simple. We can even do that if we don't have a graph, because now in our book there's probably some problems, it seems like. Let me just show you. There are probably some problems where it says M equals -3/4 and B equals -5. Is that the same thing we just did, except you didn't have to find it? Just came out and told you. Alright, so what would the equation for that line be?
Y equals -3/4 x minus 5.
Okay. Now remember I said that you have to have two things to write an equation. You have to have a point and a slope. Now the two problems we've done so far, the particular point we were given, it was so convenient for us because it was B. We could just substitute it right into here. We have the y-intercept. But it's possible to write an equation when, is this point on the y-axis? It's not, is it? Matter of fact, it's in what quadrant? 1, 3. It's in the second quadrant. Alright? So to do that, you need something called point, slope, form. Makes me think of the slope formula. The y minus y1 and the x minus x1. Actually, you guys remember the slope formula? Familiar? If we considered that to be a proportion and we cross multiplied 1 times y2 minus y1 equals m times x2 minus x1, it looks a whole lot like it, doesn't it? Matter of fact, the point slope formula is derived or comes from the slope formula. The difference is there's not a y2 and an x2 because these are the variables and we're not going to have numbers to plug in there. So you might underline those to say don't plug in numbers here. Those are my variables, okay, so don't plug in numbers there. Now, with the point slope form, we can write the equation of any line. It has to be a line. We have to have a point and a slope. And so what we're going to do, this is the one and only point that I'm given. So this must be x1 and this must be y1 because it is a point. And this is my slope. So let's substitute in what we know to find what we don't know. Y minus 3. Here's y1. Now it's kind of weird because you plug in the y's first, even though when you're looking over here, the y actually comes last, doesn't it? So keep in mind of that. There are also built-in minus signs in this formula. So watch your signs. So equals the slope, and x minus a -1 becomes what?
Plus
Plus 1. Alright, that is point slope form. Point slope. Have we graphed with point slope form? What are the two forms we've been graphing with? Standard and slope intercept. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put this equation in slope intercept and standard forms. So to get this in slope intercept form, what do we need to get by itself? Y. Let's do it. What property is this? And it causes us a lot of trouble, so be careful. So y minus 3 is equal to 2 times x plus 2 times 1. Okay, I'm almost there. I've got to get y by itself, so what do I do to both sides? Good. Right, that's my first answer. That is slope intercept form. I have solved for y. Right now, I want to put it into standard. Depends on what your directions say. Sometimes they say, write the equation in slope intercept form. And then sometimes they say, write the equation in standard form. So I just want to show you how to keep going to get to standard. What form did I start with? Do you remember what I called it?
Point slope.
We started with point slope. Gee, I wonder why they call it that. Because what are the two things I need to write an equation with? A point and a slope. I guess that's why they call it point slope. Make sense? So that can help us remember. All right, so I'm going to take this equation, which is in slope intercept form, and we're going to go to standard. Remember yesterday we worked on that a little bit? We went from slope intercept to standard. So I need my x in front of my y. And right now it's right here. So what would I do to both sides? Subtract. So let's subtract 2x from both sides. Is that it? Am I finished? What's wrong with that?
There's a negative.
There's a negative.
Then I multiply by -1.
That's right. I need to multiply by -1. So I'll have 2x minus y equals -5. I have both answers now. One was in slope intercept, and this one is in standard form. And that's all there is to it. Does anybody have a question? So all we're going to do is practice. So if we had a graph, or we had a slope and a y-intercept, we just plug straight into slope-intercept form. That made sense, doesn't it? But when our point is not B, it is not on the y-axis, we can't do that. Okay, so we have to use point-slope form, and then we'll just practice with that for a little while. All right, here is the slope, 1/2. Here is the point, -2, -4. Let's watch our signs. So if I'm to write the equation of the line that goes through this point and has this slope, I'll start with point slope form. If you guys will look on your reference sheet that I gave you, this formula is on there. So if we're taking the end of course test, that formula is on there in case you do forget it. But also think about this. I could derive that formula from my slope formula, just cross multiplying and figure out what it was. All right, let's plug stuff in. Here's my one and only x, my one and only y. So y minus a -4 is +4. My slope is 1/2. X minus a -2. That's the only new stuff. Right there. Do y'all think this is hard?
No.
It isn't. But you know what, I'll be honest? People have so much trouble with it. But I feel like so far we're okay. Okay? I feel like yes. Alright, put this in slope intercept form. In other words, just solve for y. Put this in slope intercept form. Good job. Does anybody have a question? He's exactly right.
You put a plus?
Okay, with the distributed property, oftentimes we mess up right here. We'll forget to say 1/2 times x, but we just bring the 2 down. So 1/2 of 2 is 1. That's a good place to mess up. Okay, so 1/2 of 2 is 1. And then, did you subtract 4 from both sides? Because it was added here, we did the opposite, subtracted 4 from both sides, and 1 minus 4 is a -3. So this is slope intercept. That's slope intercept. All right, now let's go to standard form. How would we take the x to the other side? Subtract it. Right now it's positive. So I would have -1/2 x plus y equals -3. But that's not quite standard, is it? Yes, what you need to do. Yes, go ahead. What do we need to do?
So -1, yeah.
I got a negative and I also have a denominator. How would I get rid of that denominator? A negative what? A -2. That's my denominator. Alright, so that would leave me with x minus 2y equals 6. And this is my standard form of algebra. Alright, the 2 came from the fact that I would multiply, if I have a fraction, I use the common denominator. I only have one fraction, so common denominator's gotta be 2. And the reason I chose a negative is because this sign cannot be negative and I have to change that sign. If this was positive, I wouldn't multiply through by negative and make it negative, right? So it's negative, that's the reason for the negative. There's a 2 in the denominator, that's the reason for the 2. And this 1 right here came from the fact that 1/2 of 2 is 1. I just multiplied 2 times 1/2, 2 times negative 2 times -1/2, -2 times +1, and -2 times 3. Another thing, just like over here with the distributed property, another good place to miss it is people will multiply the first one times the number on the outside, but they won't keep going. So multiply everything in the parentheses. All right, any other questions? All right, if not, let's look at this. What is missing? What do I have? What? I'm missing the slope. I've got 2 points. What are the 2 things I need to write an equation with? A point and a slope. Alright, so since what we have missing is the slope, and we have 2 points, which is perfect, that's what I need. I'll use the slope formula and find the slope. Okay, what would happen? Plug it in. What would it do?
You put 0.
0. And then this is built in.
6.
Right. These signs are built in, don't forget those. And so then x2, whatever y I start with on top, I start with its x on the bottom. And then I would have
0.
minus 0. So I end up with -6/5 as my slope. Alright, think back to the first example we did, where I had a graph, and I had a slope, and I had a y-intercept. What was the little shortcut that I could do? If I had M, and I had B, what could I do? Just plug them in, didn't I? Okay. Do I have B up here? Do I have a y-intercept? As a matter of fact, I have a y-intercept and I have an x-intercept. Is the x-intercept useful to me when I'm writing an equation? No, it isn't. So if this is B, what's my equation? Y equals -6/5 x. What? Plus 6. Here's B. That point happens to be on the y-axis. Now what if I didn't have a y-intercept? What would I do? What formula do I use if I don't have a y-intercept? We've just been doing it. Look back in your notes.
Slope.
Point slope. If I don't have a y-intercept, I have to go through point slope, because what are the two things I need to write an equation? Point, slope. That's why they call it point slope. Alright, so this is slope intercept form. I was able to use the shortcut on this one. Put that equation in standard form. Put that equation in standard form. Okay, so now we don't have a negative, but we do have a fraction. So put the whole thing in parentheses. And what would you multiply through by?
5.
Good. You make it go up so you don't have to. There you go. So the 5's cancel and leave you with 6x. But you also have to multiply that 5 by everything else. That's standard. Raise your hand if you had that. A few, okay? We gotta keep practicing, don't we? Alright, what happened there was I didn't have a negative, so you don't have to change that sign. You just change what you have to change. Don't just automatically assume I'm gonna multiply by a negative number. This was positive. I had a fraction, so I used its denominator, the only denominator I had. Multiply everything by 5. The 5's canceled here, leave me with 6x. 5 times y is 5y. 5 times 6 is 30. That's where standard form comes from.
Oh, never mind. I'm stupid.
To take the x to the other side, she added 6/5 x, and so that's why that became positive.
Okay.
Any other questions? Let's keep practicing until we can all raise our hand. I have a graph again. I'm going to write the equation in the line. What do I not know for sure? Could I find m?
We don't know the y-intercept.
Could I have what?
We don't know the
I
y-intercept.
can't. I know it's a little bit above the 9. It's not going exactly through the point, so I don't have b. Alright, so if really all the information I have is 2 points, and the points are, looks like 7, -3, and 3, 4, I could find the slope with the slope formula, because I do have to have slope to write an equation, or I could count boxes. So if I counted boxes, my slope would be -7/4, because I would go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and to the left 1, 2, 3, 4. Or I could go the other way, go down 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. So regardless, even if I use the slope formula or if I just count boxes, that's my slope. Now let me ask you a question. The slope of a line, if I'm looking at any line, does the slope on that line stay constant all over the line, or does it change at different points? It stays constant. So, thinking about that, if this is the point 3, 4, and this is the point 7, -3, since I don't have b, and so to write the equation I have to use point slope form, let me ask you this question. Does it matter which point I use? Not if that slope is the same everywhere on the line. Does that make sense? Now, yeah, I'm going to use different numbers, but when I get down to my final answer, it's going to be the same. Are you with me? Not really? So what I'm saying is, when you start to pick a point, some people will pick 3, 4, some people will pick 7, -3, but in the end, it won't matter, okay? So somebody's going to ask me that in a few minutes. Does it matter which one I use? Not at all. Now, I would probably use the 3, 4. Why? Positives. Just so I don't miss a sign. But it's also good if you use that. All right, so let's just say that together we're going to use 3, 4. And so y minus 4 is equal to negative 7/4 times x minus 3. Alright, I used what I knew. I plugged into the point slope. And that's the only new part, okay, to this lesson. So now, put this equation in slope-intercept form, in other words, solve for y.
Okay. I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, bring down the left-hand side and do the distributive property on the right-hand side.
Hold on. I didn't have a calculator and fraction bracket.
Oh, okay, well, we can fix that. It's not a problem.
Okay. I don't. Okay. What is? Okay.
Alright, so it'd be positive.
Hold on.
Positive, because they had 21/4.
21.
Alright, now, so guys, if I wanted to make this a mixed number, what would it be? Anybody know?
5 and 1/4.
5 1/4, so that gives you an idea this is positive 5 1/4. So add 4 to both sides.
Can I?
Oh yeah. Alright, so that's 5 1/4 plus 4 would be 9 1/4.
Okay. Plus 9 and 1.
There you go. Good job.
Yay.
Questions? Yes, sir.
Can you come in a little bit?
Alright, so if this says 9.25, that's the same thing. I would have it, I'd probably leave it like that. I would probably leave it improper, and here's why. That's slope-intercept form. Let you label that, slope-intercept. So when we wanted to go to standard then, somebody asked this question a few minutes ago. Tell me now, what would you do to both sides? This is negative, so we would add it, right. So I would have 7/4 x plus y equals 37/4. I have two fractions, but they have the same denominator, so what's the common denominator? 4. Alright, here's why I wouldn't make it mixed, but until later. But the 4's cancel. 4 times y. And again, the 4's cancel. So, but if you got a fraction button on your calculator, you don't care if it's mixed or improper. It doesn't matter, does it? Because it'll do it for you. Man, let's think about yesterday and the day before. If I had this equation and I had told y'all to find the slope and the x-intercept and the y-intercept from these numbers right here, what do you think? That'd be ugly, wouldn't it? What about down here? C over A, the x-intercept, 37/7. The y-intercept, 37/4.
Like 5.
That'd be fun, wouldn't it? And you would end up with this line right here. It just so happens that the intercepts are very difficult. Of course, these points are not at all, but the intercepts
It
are
would be
difficult.
9
9 1/4. We could do it. I'm just saying it wouldn't be as pretty as, 3 4, would it? But we could do it. So if the intercepts aren't given, can you write the equation? Sure, as long as you've got 2 points and you can find the slope, that's no big deal. Okay. So with that in mind, here's 2 points. They're not on a graph. I just gave them to you. Okay. So here's the 2 points. So let's talk about, before you get started, what process you're going to go through on your paper. First, you're going to find the slope. And then since neither of those are a special point, a y-intercept, or B, okay? Since it's not a y-intercept, what do you have to use? What's that formula?
Point slope.
Point slope. So, good job. So, you're first going to start here. And then once you get that information, you're gonna go to here and
Yeah.
write the equation.
Gotta remember that formula.
Remember, it looks just like the slope formula, just cross multiply. Alright, go all the way through to standard form. Okay, reduce that for us. Okay, good. You guys agree? Okay, let's take it now to slope intercept form. You can bring it with you.
If it's negative 1 over 1, it's still just negative 1, right?
Right.
Okay.
Wait, that,
Can I just write the answer down and do it right there?
Show us. Show us how to do it. And you can also make it move up so you don't have to bend over. Put your parentheses right here.
I'm confused.
You don't add 7 to both sides before you do your distributive property. Doesn't multiplication come first? Don't we simplify each side? Alright, so simplify each side means do the distributive property, and this is a 1, and then to undo that subtracted 7, now you add 7. So y equal negative x, 1x plus 8 is a slope intercept form. Alright, so negative 1 times x was negative x, and negative 1 times negative 1 was positive 1 here. Add 7 to both sides, and we had slope intercept form. So then all he had to do to go to standard form was to add this 1x to both sides, and standard form is x plus y equals 8. Does anybody have a question? How hard is this? Is this as bad as graphing?
No.
this is what?
This is worse.
Today's the 27th.
To be honest, sometimes it is. I honestly will tell you that a lot of people have trouble with these. Okay. All right. With these 2 points, graph and then write the equation.
It's just a vertical line.
Yes, it is. That's true. We've got 3, 4, and 3, negative 3. So people that found the slope instead of graphing it know that you can't have 0 in the denominator, that it has no slope. Alright, so we have enough information, either way, whether we found the slope or we did the graph, we have enough information to know that we have what kind of line? Vertical. And I told you to write the equation of the line. What would it be? How do you write the equation of a vertical line?
You don't.
Now look at it. They're the same, and they always will be.
It's x equal 3.
X equal 3.
Oh,
Let me ask you a question. Y'all ready for this?
okay. No.
Is that in? I'm gonna give it to you. Wait, is this in slope intercept or standard? What? Standard. Why is it can't be slope intercept?
Because there is no slope.
And there's no.
True, and there is no
Why?
y. No y, no
$3
slope.
today?
So that is standard form. Alright, does anyone have a question?
Yeah. I'm just kidding.
Okay, do this one, same way. You don't even have to graph it. Write the equation of the line that goes through these 2 points. Put your 5s together. Oh. Put your 10 with your 2. See, they're x's. Plus 5. Negative
Wait, I
5.
messed up, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right here, 2 plus 5. You want an eraser? And here's the, look, I've got it humongous, so put that right there. Okay. Cause that's a 10, isn't it?
Yeah.
Alright, so negative 5 plus 5. Cause you're changing the sign there, so equals 0 over 8, 0.
0.
Okay, so what's the equation of our line? You told me what it was.
I did.
Y equals negative 5. Alright, now I wanna point something out to you. On that last equation, can y'all backtrack for just a second?
Mm-hmm.
On that last equation, it had no slope. Is it possible then to use point slope form where you have to plug in slope?
No.
So where do you have to do that one? In your head.
Knowledge.
Is it possible, since this one has a slope of 0,
Yes.
to plug it in?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. What's 0 times anything?
1.
0. 0. So if I had y minus a negative 5, y plus 5 equals 0, and I subtracted 5 from both sides, guess what I get? Or I can do it in my head. Make sense? Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Alright, we're going to do these problems. We're going to find the slope intercept. I have to find the slope on some of them if you're giving 2 points, right?
Uh-huh.
You're going to find the slope intercept and standard form of those equations. Make sure you copy down your assignment.